Hey, PokeDad Fan Club, it's PokeDad, and today I'm doing another deck profile. I told you I was going to try to do several this week, and so even though today is Tuesday, we're probably gonna do Tuesday night fights, but I also have another deck with Giratina in it. And so for Tuesday night fights, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a couple battle videos showing the Seismitoad Giratina deck that I profiled yesterday. We'll do that online. But then my wife and I are probably going to battle, and we're going to go a head-to-head matchup with Giratina. She'll be using this deck that I'm getting ready to show you, and then I'm going to be doing the Giratina Pyroar. And we actually played a game last night, and it was really close. Both decks are pretty strong. So anyway, keep your eye out for that. But anyway, I wanted to do another Giratina. I know I've been doing a lot of Giratina, and I promise this is my last one. I'm really hyped about this card, Giratina EX. It has Renegade Pulse ability, so it can't be hurt by Mega Pokemon or Primal Pokemon. So your Primal Kyogre, Primal Groudon can't hurt Giratina. Mega Rayquaza can't hurt him. Mega Manectric, all the Megas can't hurt him unless there's a Hex Maniac in play. So that means they either have to find some other way to attack, they have to Lysander around him, or they have to play without the Mega Evolution. So then they have to go with just the regular EX. And then that kind of evens the matchup a little bit, because Giratina will hit and they can hit, and it's a more even match that way. Now, the real thing special about Giratina, though, is Chaos Will, and I've mentioned this before, but I'm not going to belabor it, but I will just mention it in passing again, is Chaos Will can really help against Stage 1 decks, which are really big right now. So Chaos Will prevents your opponent from playing any special energy or any stadium cards or any tool cards. So double colorless, which is big right now in the meta because of Raichu and Vespiquen, and Night March can't be played after a Chaos Will has happened. And that really forces your opponent to play some of their energy, and most of those decks don't have a lot of energy. I mean, I've profiled some of those decks, and we don't have a lot of energy for those. So Giratina makes a very good case against those Stage 1 decks. Now, that's going to be our main attacker also. Now, this version is mostly an Aromatisse deck, Aromatisse build. Now, Aromatisse has been used in a lot of different types of decks. We've profiled Mega Gardevoir, and we've profiled Florges, and we've profiled Fairy Toolbox decks. And this is kind of more of a toolbox deck for dragons, though I would say Giratina is the main attacker, though we have a couple other attackers. I really would have liked to put another fairy attacker in here other than Xerneas. However, it causes kind of a problem because there's not really a good fairy attacker. Florges is good, but only if you're playing a pure fairy or a fairy grass deck. When you got other types in here, Florges just doesn't really help that much. So anyway, so we don't really play any fairy attackers other than Xerneas, and we'll talk about Xerneas a little bit later. But Aromatisse has the fairy transfer ability, which allows you to move as often as you want, move any fairy energy attached to one of your Pokemon to another one. And what's really cool about this deck is we're playing fairy energy and double dragon energy, so we can move the fairy energy around, or we can move the double dragon energy around. And so we can take the double dragon energy, put it to another Giratina or a Hydreigon, and then AZ are active that may have damage on it. bring it back to our hand, put it back down, and then if you have, then we'll put someone else up. But if we have Fairy Garden, we can then retreat that back to the Giratina and then transfer all the energy back to Giratina. And that's what makes this deck one of the very best, because if you have free retreat and you have the fairy transfer, this deck really is very, very useful, you know. Alright, so let's move right along. Let's go ahead and talk about Xerneas, because Xerneas is a key to this deck. Xerneas has Geomancy and Rainbow Spear, and both of these are used in this deck. So Geomancy is the key thing. Xerneas is really our best starter. So if we can Geomancy on turn 1, we can put 2 fairy energies from our deck into play onto our bench. And then if we can get Aromatisse going by turn 2, then we can play a double dragon energy and have Giratina ready to go on turn 2, sorry. And then a turn 2 Giratina attack is very, very powerful and very hard to stop for our opponent. Now, Rainbow Spear is also something very special. I need to stop here and kind of talk about Rainbow Spear, because it does a lot of things for us. Number 1, of all the Giratina decks, this one probably has the best mirror match. And the reason for that is because of Xerneas. Xerneas can Rainbow Spear an opposing Giratina or Hydreigon and one-shot it. End of story. So, and the other thing about it is most Giratina mirror matches require that the other Giratina play double dragon. And if someone else gets their Chaos Wheel off against you first, then you can't play your double dragon, and then you can't come in with your Giratina and attack. And so, usually in a Giratina mirror match, whoever gets their first Chaos Wheel off wins the game. Not so in this deck, because Xerneas only needs fairy energy. So we can continue to Geomancy and put fairy energy on Xerneas, and then Rainbow Spear for the knockout on the opposing Giratina, giving us time to break the Chaos Wheel lock and then get our own Giratina set up. So Xerneas is very strong. Now, another place where Xerneas comes in really handy is against opposing Shaimans. Rainbow Spear with a Muscle Band can knock out an opposing Shaiman. Alright, so that's why Xerneas is so useful in this matchup, especially in the mirror match. Alright, so we do have 2 other secondary attackers. We have the Hydreigon, and we only play 1. We really don't need Dragon Road. It doesn't come into play as often with, say, other Giratina decks, though it can be useful in some cases. However, we do have to use Shred sometimes to get through walls like Aegislash or Beautifly or those kind of walls. So Hydreigon can help us with that. Of course, Xerneas can help us go through some of those walls too. Actually most walls. Not every wall, but most walls. The only one that really is a big deal is Pyroar for this deck. So Hydreigon can help through Pyroar. So anyway, that's why he's in here. Alright, the other secondary attacker we have is Lugia. Now, the cool thing about Lugia is it's kind of like the old Mewtwo. Arrow Ball does 20 times the number of fairy energy in play. You really can use it for a big attack if you need to. The thing is if we get a lot and we have 6 energies in play, we can really get it if we want to, but we can put a lot of energy on Lugia. And if the Pokemon has a lot of energy, we can hit for a really big Arrow Ball. So we really don't want to use it to knock out a Garden because that's essential. But if we don't have a Fairy Garden in hand, opponent has their Stadium up, we can always Deep Hurricane, knock the Stadium out, and do 150 damage for 4 energies. So that can be useful. A Muscle Band's 170, so you can knock out an opposing Giratina, or you can knock out an Eviltall EX. So it's a good number. It hits at a number that we can really use to knock out some of the lower level EXs there. Alright, so that's kind of our secondary attackers. We also play Shaiman, which really isn't used for an attack much. We don't play any double colorless here, so we rarely want to Sky Return Shaiman here. We'll be bringing 2 fairy energies into our hand, and the idea really is to get as many energies into the game as possible instead of having to re-put those back out. So we don't want to Sky Return too much, but setup again is just so essential in the meta right now. So we play 2 of these so that we can get more cards in our hand. Anyway, so that's all the Pokemon. So we play 16 Pokemon here. Now let's look at let's look at our items and supporters. I play 1 Enhanced Hammer. I feel like right now the meta is so special energy dependent. I mean, even the Giratinas here are having to use Double Dragon. So, and 1 Enhanced Hammer can go a long way to win battles for you. So I think it's important. I would even like to bump this up to 2, but we're just playing the 1. That kind of helps with that. We play 3 Ultra Balls. This will help us get Shaymans or get a Giratina out or whatever we need at the particular time. Our Aromatisse line is so important that we have to play 2 level balls, so we can either A, get a Spritzy out if we don't have it early, or we can get the Aromatisse if we already have the Spritzy. We really want to try to have Aromatisse out by turn 2, if at all possible. We play 3 Trainer's Mails here, so we can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and then reveal a trainer card, except for Trainer's Mail. Just again helps us get through our deck and find supporters quickly. So if we get stuck, Trainer's Mail can help us through that. We play 3 Muscle Bands. This is just with Giratina having such a light attack, we really need a damage modifier to help add more damage. So Muscle Bands, the key here. Giratina can now hit for 120, and so can Xerneas hit for 120. And Lugia, that allows Lugia to hit for 170 using the Deep Hurricane. So those are all good numbers that help us hit the match right in certain circumstances. We play 4 VS Seeker. VS Seeker is just essential in every deck now, especially with draw support being so average now. With Ian and Culberus out of the game, we're having to rely on Birch and Shauna. And so VS Seeker allows us to get a Sycamore back into our hand much easier. So if we have 4 of them, it allows us, to find that Sycamore a lot easier. Alright, and then let's talk about the stadium next. We play 4 Fairy Gardens. Just makes sense. I mean, each Pokemon that has Fairy Energy attached to it has no retreat cost. This also includes Double Dragon Energy because they can be Fairy Energies. So, even your dragons get to retreat for free, even if they don't have Fairy Energy. They just have Double Dragon on them. Very, very useful card here. And then once we start Chaos Willing, the opponent can't change the stadium on us. So Fairy Garden comes in very handy in this situation. Alright, now let's go into our supporters. We play 4 Sycamores. Discard your hand and draw 7. That's a staple. You need to have 4 of those in the deck. 3 Birches. And you could switch this in for Shauna. As a matter of fact, it might even be good to go like 2 Birch and 1 Shauna. I'm just, this particular deck, I'm testing it with Birch and see how it works. But 3 Birches, shuffle your hand into your deck, flip a coin. If heads, draw 7. If tails, you only get 4. 2 Lysanders. Lysander, like I tell you over and over again, it just wins games. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with his or her active Pokemon, so you can bring up that Shaiman so that Xerneas or Giratina can knock it out, finish the game off. or just take an easy 2 prizes, or if someone's already damaged really bad and you need to bring them back up, Lysander them back up and take a knockout on them. We play 1 Ace Trainer here. You can only play this if you're behind in prizes, so if they've taken a prize and you haven't taken any, you can Ace Trainer them, and this gets their hand down to 3 and your hand to 6. So, and that both players have to shuffle their cards in and then they redraw. You get to draw 6 and your opponent gets to draw 3. So it's kind of a hand disruption card, but not as big as in. So we play 1 of those just in case. And then AZ is a really big card in this deck because we don't have Max Potion anymore. So with AZ, with Max Potion out of the format, AZ becomes the new Max Potion. And I already kind of mentioned this earlier, because we have Fairy Transfer, we can transfer the energy around however we want. Then we can AZ the damaged Pokemon once the energy's been transferred away. AZ them back into our hand, then put them back on the bench, retreat back into them, and then put all the energy back. And it's like basically a Max Potion. So a very useful card for our damaged Pokemon. Can be very useful. Also, Lysander something up, even just for as a delay tactic. And maybe we don't have the Fairy Transfer in play yet. We can AZ them the active, and gives us a shot to bring something else up. Alright, and then let's just talk about the energies. We play 8 Fairy Energy, 4 Double Dragon Energy, and that completes our deck. I do want to just take a moment to talk a little bit about the different Giratina decks. Maybe I'll do that in another video, because I want to kind of give you the pros and cons for each of them. But I've talked about 4 of them now. I'm kind of, if I had to tell you which ones I lean to most, I would say I lean furthest away from the Vileplume Giratina deck. I think in theory that was a good idea, but I don't think it's as good, even though it may have some win conditions that can lead you to a quicker victory. I think those win conditions just don't happen as often as you'd like. I really like this build. I do like the Giratina Pyroar build, but I think I like this build a little bit better. However, into Tuesday Night Fights tonight, I will be piloting the Giratina Pyroar, and my wife will pilot this build. And then I also like the trolley build that I mentioned yesterday with the Seismitoad and Giratina. It'd be really disruptive, and it wins a lot of games too. So, but that one is more like all about getting energy disruption, and it struggles with decks like Mega Manectric that continually bring more energy back out of the discard pile. So a deck like this doesn't struggle with Mega Manectric as much, so because you're not really worried about the energy disruption. You're just getting charged up quickly and getting your stadium in play so they can't heal off damage. So I think this is a pretty good build. So I'd probably say this is top one here. Anyway, with that though, I'm going to, like I always tell you, play test, play test, play test. So I'm going to be really testing these and finding out which one I like. I'm going to run a Giratina at my next League Challenge just to see how it goes. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you. This is PokeDad signing off. Hit like, subscribe, comment below, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.